Overwatch 2 has had a rather tumultuous history since it dropped a couple years ago. There was the whole Activision Blizzard workplace scandal shortly leading up to the game's release, with multiple people leaving the company, President Mike Ybarra, Barbie Kotick to name a few. And for better or worse, from top to bottom, Blizzard saw a shift in its managerial and development team that for many signaled the beginning of the end times for the company. Many thought that the company and its IPs were on life support. Couple the struggles within the company, but also the failures that were the PvE paid invasion mode that botched player trust and fairness and expectations, the collapse of the Overwatch League and the esports infrastructure of the game, and frankly awful monetization that has thankfully been rectified recently with Overwatch coins in the Battle Pass and loot boxes, as well as all the things people have already hated on Overwatch 4, which you've heard a million times by now. To players and to Chinese corporate NetEase, who crucially ended its contract with Blizzard to distribute Overwatch in China, there was an apparent vacancy in the hero shooter space, and NetEase were looking to capitalize on that opportunity. And for the first time, Overwatch was actually due for some actual competition, outside of other FPS games that didn't quite fit the niche. Enter Marvel Rivals, the community thoroughbred Overwatch killer, and on release it was sleek and shiny, and had an insanely strong pre-established IP, with Overwatch-like gameplay to boot, and it didn't just feel like Overwatch with a new coat of paint at the same time. It felt like it had substance and originality, with an addictive gameplay loop and individual character dynamics and strengths. The game was fun, quite noticeably, and while Marvel Rivals still is a fun game, and it does have its merit, despite all of its strengths to me, not only does it not scratch the particular itch in my brain or feel as special as Overwatch does, but objectively speaking, it is just not a competitive game. And despite its attempts to, and not on release feeling like it would compete with Overwatch on gameplay merits, it simply doesn't have the depth or the nuance of Overwatch to me from a gameplay perspective to push it over the top. And looking at the game's numbers recently, and Overwatch's mounted comeback since the advent of perks, it's safe to say that the community agrees. Here's why I think the game won't be as big as people initially anticipated it to be, and why it really just hasn't been fun lately for players. Rivals' map design is a bit shaky to say the least. Large sightlines, corners that lead to pathways that lead to arbitrary random dead ends that seem like flanks, and extremely oppressive high ground all combined for a map geometry and overall map structure that pales in comparison to Overwatch's more grounded 3-lane approach. For the sake of what I can only presume is flavor and map variety, Rivals implemented breakable terrain like I'm playing Fortnite, as well as geometry that better fits the IP and setting of each map, which I understand. Think large chandeliers and tons of pillars on Yggdrasil, or whatever alien crap is on that Clintar point. The point being, maps in comparison to Overwatch are Mickey Mouse as hell. Space control is valuable in all games, but especially so in shooter and hero shooter games where the difference in map geometry is so great that it dictates hero viability and opens up new strategies depending on the part of the map that your team controls. Maps with breakable terrain damage the absolute that is map control in the game. If I'm holding a powerful position, most of the time I deserve that space because I fought you for it and won. Why can anyone just shoot the floor and break it? In my opinion, the mechanic should be removed in competitive modes to even the playing field, and keep things consistent. 3 white blonde girls and all with big butts. We know exactly what you're doing, NetEase. The game launched with 5 tanks and is a DPS-centric game, with supports that also feel heal body and caster-style supports that spam CDs down main and turn the game into a healing creep fiesta, which is more of a balancing issue to be fair, but where 12 players are just fighting in a Luna ult for half of a century. Sustain has gotten out of hand, and tanking feels the same as it does in Overwatch despite being 6v6. Is this a problem with the format? Or with the design of certain heroes? I'm not sure. But one thing I do know is that there is way more substance within the DPS role in the game compared to the rest, with designs like Spider-Man or Magic being really out there and catching the eye as opposed to the generic tanks and supports we've gotten so far. It's no secret Rivals is a DPS-centric game, which isn't a problem, but it's running into the same design pitfalls as Overwatch because of whatever reason. Can we innovate beyond just damage-dealing roles, please? Do they always have to be the most popular? Sheesh. There are some bright spots, though. I like Captain America, and he would honestly be a lot better if he were in the Overwatch engine. The Venom's a pretty fun and simple tank, but has plenty of skill expression in the form of his movement. But heroes like Thor, Hulk, Magneto, and especially Strange, they just feel like soulless tank archetypes, or just clones of pre-existing Overwatch heroes that kind of spit in the face of the source material which they came from. And despite having different abilities, Luna and Mantis just feel a little bit too alike compared to how every other DPS character in the game feels. So why am I in Plat and Diamond gaining 26 per win and only 6 per loss? I'm sorry, but this game is just not competitive whatsoever in the ranked system. In Pro Play, sure, the game has interesting mechanics like team-ups, and the gameplay is largely similar to Overwatch in higher levels of play. This is not on a knock on the gameplay itself, but rather the system around it, especially in ranked. You can unironically flip queue, or even, with a sub 50% win rate, climb to GM. That's unheard of. This ends up hurting the quality of the matchmaking because, despite a lobby having everyone in Grandmaster, in Diamond, or whatever rank, a rather balanced match from a raw rank perspective, a GM with a 70% win rate is 10 times the player of a GM who flipped you to get to that point. And this ends up making matches pub stompy and snowbally in nature as the game can't distinguish who is who. And the very thing we hated in Overwatch since we got rid of 2CP and Clash, in that games are just way too swingy. The game is too forgiving, and it's disingenuous to its player base because of it. I honestly think that it's even predatory in nature. It's no secret that you prefer to win rather than lose, and you're more likely to continue playing the game if you keep winning. So softening the blow of losing can lead you to play more, thus spending more time on the game and increasing the chances that you help monetize it by buying in-game currency and skins. And is this fun for casual players? Yeah. But does the IP really spread its stuff here by giving you cool endgame Iron Man snap or some Spider-Man skin? Yeah, sure, absolutely. But I just can't take the game seriously on a competitive level if it's this easy to climb into the game. I'm going to be honest, if this offends you, I really don't care. Getting low GM in Rivals is low-key getting Diamond in Overwatch. It is genuinely that inflated. This isn't really a knock on the game, more so highlighting Overwatch's ability to consistently get interesting and flavorful collabs. Imagine a DC Marvel Rivals collab and we get like Flash, Superman, or holy crap, Batman. That would genuinely break the internet. Huge missed opportunity if they're not doing that already. Guys, I can't stress this enough when I say this. We do not need a new hero every month. Eventually, your game is going to be oversaturated, overwhelming to new players, and difficult to balance to top it. Don't pull a League of Legends and end up with the game at 170 champions, and feeling too much for players who didn't learn it earlier on in the game's lifecycle. Even if you can balance it, you're going to end up just alienating the player base in the end. Part of Marvel Rivals' mainstream appeal is that it's a little pick up and play compared to Overwatch, ironically, because losing doesn't feel as punishing, especially in rank. And yeah, I knocked that point earlier, but from a casual perspective, it's quite endearing. If you're playing Spider-Man and you're playing Wanda, and iconic character appeal is carrying your game, you want to push that in the direction, but you won't find me playing the game. You can still have a large audience, and the game has proven to be quite popular. If you don't care about the game from a competitive lens and just want content spewed out, then sure, be my guest. But again, that's just a casual perspective. There's two sides to the gameplay success coin. I'd rather you spend 2 months right this very second of absolutely no content for the main gameplay structure, outside of maybe minor cosmetics and events, maybe a map or two, and you retool the maps to feel more like Overwatch. More structured, actual usable flank routes that don't lead to nowhere, remove breakable terrain, and slow down the release of new characters, and instead polish what you've already created, which is a fantastic casual game that could turn into something greater if you wanted it to. Team-ups are a fantastic and novel idea in the hero shooter genre, and I think it was largely the inspiration for the perk system in Overwatch. For most characters, it gives you choice and rewards you for synergizing with your teammates, often in the form of interactive abilities like Hulk and Wolverine's toss. However, at the same time, too many abilities in the game just feel like flat buffs without that much substance, or for frankly any interesting gameplay dynamic behind it. Wanda buffing Magneto C, or Iron Man turning into literal Jesus when Hulk is on his team. Really oppressive strategies emerged early on that felt like abusing numbers rather than any actual team-up. And in the case of heroes like Magneto, it often ends up in you playing a really bad hero in Wanda just to give your teammate a fighting chance, which makes some team-up feel one-sided. I mained Venom when playing the game. While my Spider-Man was having a blast with the Venom passive combo, I didn't feel rewarded nearly as much, and didn't get nearly as high of a dopamine rush for enabling that to happen. I don't like Lifeweaver or Moira, these healbot supports that just sustain and that's kind of it. But luckily, these characters tend to be on the weaker side, in terms of balance. Unfortunately for Rivals, the support meta are those types of heroes, and I don't know why we haven't thought of nerfing Luna ult, like, seriously. Like, what is going on? Can I please kill something? People don't like abilities like Lifeweaver Pull, Kiri Suzu, and Immortality Field because it's ability denial. It makes you feel punished for making a cool play. and can remove some of the outplay moments or dopaminergic feel-good moments away from the players. My issue is that in the base kit of Marvel Rivals characters, heroes like Jeff, Luna, you just get put to sleep, stunned, and the person you were diving gets immediately topped up to full, like you weren't even there. Like, the sustain creep is insane. This sustained-based direction has just turned the game into a 30-second teamfight, where you win based on whether you can tank long enough or kill the enemy supports first, which to me is bogging down the game of any strategy, like the crazy stuff you see in high-level Overwatch play. This isn't a knock on the game itself, but more so the community. But this game largely feels political to me. What do I mean by that? It was Overwatch players who were dissatisfied with the game's direction jumping ship to Marvel Rivals, and saying that the game was the Overwatch killer. And in my opinion, dooming the game in the eyes of Overwatch loyalists to be permanently reduced to that title. Frankly, Rivals can keep those knee-jerk reaction Twitter randoms who don't understand how privileged we are in the Overwatch 2 model now. To the people who constantly complain about the game, even played the game they idolized so much in early Overwatch 1, you do realize the game's lifespan has been marred by goats, double shield, horrible balancing, and a severe 2-year content drought, right? Now, with that said, I think Rivals is different, and shouldn't be constantly compared to Overwatch, even though they are largely similar games, and are within the same genre. The comparison is unavoidable in that sense, but at the same time, we can let Rivals and Overwatch coexist off of their own merits, and bounce ideas off of each other, so the hero shooter genre can prosper as a profitable entertainment, period. But, at least for me, I don't enjoy it enough to consider playing both. I'm gonna stick to the game that I enjoy more. And that's gonna be it for this video. Let me know what you guys think of Rivals in its current state down in the comments below, and if you're an avid Overwatch diehard, whether you're still even playing the game at this point, or if it's enjoyable for you. For me, I just can't find the magic of Overwatch in that game, and it feels too unpolished for me. But if you enjoy the game, disagree with me, and think I'm a Blizzard shill, I mean, all the power to you, right? Anyways, that's gonna be me signing off for tonight, and y'all have a good night.